Greetings, Massive. Who are some of the important and influential people who we have met over our life's journey, and who have helped to shape the individuals who we are today? Hi, I am Lascelles Butchgad Chen from the Greetings Massive Show, coming to you live on Jamaicans.com from East Africa with a very special guest for today.
Before we begin today's show, I want to give a shout out to my good brother Omari and his wife Sipe, who own and operate iCurio craft shop in Moshi, Tanzania. They also have nice hotels and facilities to take care of you when you're in Moshi. So please stop by iCurio shops in Moshi, Tanzania.
Now, as you all know, I come from a Chinese background, and our family has a long history. And today, I have a very special guest, Mr. Oliver Chen. Greetings, Oliver.
Greetings, my brother.
Yes. Well, for the viewers, Oliver is my elder. Slightly elder, but he's still my elder.
Only one month.
Eh?
Only 1 month.
Well, whichever way it go, you know. Now, our family in Jamaica, we lived in several places, you know, Claremont, Kingston, Four Parts, and Clarendon. What your place name again, Oliver? Spring Village?
Summerfield.
Summerfield, right.
Big town.
Big town. So as kids, like my dad used to carry us around so we can meet the family. So I met Oliver when we were kids. Now,
Right.
Oliver has the history of the Chen Young family. And I am very happy today to have him. And I'm going to try my best not to disturb him because he has the history, and we want to give the viewers an opportunity to understand where some of the original Chinese families came from. You know, in Jamaica, the saying is out of many, one people. The thing that I saw in the statistics is that we are looking at a very small percentage of the Jamaican population. I think they say 1.2%. I don't really know, but there's a few Chinese, but Chinese people have influenced Jamaican society. So I want to say greetings, Oliver.
Thank you,
I'm
sir.
going to ask Oliver now to walk us through, because the knowledge I have is that our family, the Chinese part, we have a history that go back to northern China and generations of generations. So Oliver, please, can you just walk us through what we should know and bring the viewers up to date on Chinese migration and those things into Jamaica?
Right.
Greetings, Oliver.
Yes, sir. All right. Let me just start by saying that Chinese are unique people. They have a rich history going back centuries, thousands of years, actually. We are Han Chinese, and our Hakka group came from further north in China. So they moved down a couple centuries ago and moved down to the southeast of China. They are popularly called Hakka as a unique group of people. They traveled a lot. You'd call it nomadic because they move from China to all over the world. I am told that I am 13th generation in the village. And the
Wow.
village was, yeah, they track these things. There, in fact, the village is, well, the Chinese treated the villages very, in a special way, in a sense, because our village had a banyan tree in the center, but
And
it
a
had a
what?
temple, a banyan tree.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the mark of the village. But they had a temple, and which they use annually to commemorate the dead and their ancestors. So they have that rich history of tracking family and history. So that's how it all started. But going into the early 20th century, I believe that's when most of the Jamaicans, Chinese, when they came, China was struggling.
So we're talking what?
If I-
18 something or 19 something?
Very early 19, could be late 18 something, but
Okay.
most of them were, I think, started in the 19th. My grandfather, well, at the time, the Chinese were facing hardship. I understand they had famines. They were constantly attacked by the Japanese, and a lot of bad things. So if a Chinese got a chance to go out and make life, they do go there. Now, in US, on the West Coast, you had the Chinese coming in early to work on the gold mine. Remember the gold rush? Okay. Then when that fizzled out, the Chinese moved to work with the railway. Right? So they took the hardship and built the railway in the USA. So they took, in a sense, they also took away jobs from other people because they worked so hard. And they were not liked by the North Americans. So many things happened. So they moved around. They went to Panama and contributed greatly in the construction of the canal. Seems that my grandfather came in there about 1920 or thereabouts, 1910. I'm not sure what date, and established a shop in Summerfield. In fact, my sister had sent me a copy of the Gleaner Archives.
Gleaner.
Gleaner Archives, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and in the village, it said that he was arrested. No, he's not a gambler. But they said that gambling was taking place in Summerfield on his property. So he's liable. So the interesting thing is that the lawyer who defended him was Norman Manley.
Look at that.
So, yeah. So my grandfather was a forerunner. What I know is that he settled in Summerfield, and he was responsible for a lot of the Chinese that came to Jamaica. A lot of them came through the shop and moved on. Now, half of them I don't know, but they were family. In fact, one died about 3 weeks ago in Canada, and he was called Sonny Chen, and he was born in Summerfield.
Okay.
So, yeah, so a lot happened.
So
a lot of.
Hold on there, Oliver. Make we wind back a little bit. So you're saying
Yes,
now
fine.
that the people leave China and go to the western coast of the US, and then they come
Right.
down the western coast of the US to the Panama Canal.
Right.
So it is from
All
that
these
point
places are
they go to Jamaica.
to see. I think because that was not mentioned to you in his eulogy, because I just met him a couple of months ago.
Mm.
I think his father was married to a Panamanian. So he came to Jamaica.
Okay.
Both of them. Because in those early years, Jamaica and Panama were close to. So in terms
close.
of relation. Yes, the people.
Okay.
Panama had a lot of Jamaicans working there too. So my grandfather set up shop in Summerfield. Now, in those days, these villages, large rural agricultural based. So the Chinese shop that they set up was to supply the community, the workers, their groceries and et cetera, et cetera. So, and they were bustling towns. I mean, where I was in Summerfield, you may ask, why did he settle in Summerfield? Summerfield, a mile away was Chapton, which was the capital of Jamaica, of Clarendon at the time. Then Maypen became capital after. But the town had agriculture marketing corporation. It has a banana boxing plant. It has Seven's cane sugar factory, which was nearby, had a headquarters in our area. So it was, and then there was a Danks property. So the area was large agriculture. And you find...
Oliver,
sorry.
let me just jump in. People will want to know, how come it's Chinese people fill that vacuum and have a Mr. Chin shop everywhere. Nobody else was there, or when the Chinese set up them shop, them just take over that corner, that business. What was happening?
They had a good relationship. They provided goods. They provided credit to the people, and generally they have good relationship with the people. So within the community, the people didn't mind them. And in fact, this new generation of Chinese in Jamaica have done the same thing, moved into rural areas or into small areas and supplied the communities. They catered for the poor. They understood.
You can buy teaspoon of salt and
yes,
half loaf of bread
and big Gila aisle, all kind of things.
And paper on Saturday.
Yes, or
Friday.
something. Right. So they knew the people and they catered for the people. Because people were poor.
Yeah. I think the audience need to understand that, this is poor people working with poor people. And because I remember at the time we used to go 4 parts and in the shop.
Right.
And I see the small amounts of things and my uncle writing in the book.
Yes.
So credit and that working with the community, that is really what embed Mr. Chin shop in Jamaican history.
Yes. Yes. So they played a very important role. And to put it, let me just explain something that I discovered in around 1991 when I was working in stockbroking with my cousin, Paul Chen Young, English professor from UA lent me an article, Economist magazines actually, that stated that the Chinese are the largest savers in the world. And I am saying, because at that time, my perception of China was that this is a poor-ass country, But yes, if you look back, the Hakka, especially the Hakka, migrated to a lot of different countries. Throughout Asia, they control the largest wealth. If you go to Taiwan, well, Taiwan is basically China, but if you go to Thailand, Indonesia, and those other countries, Vietnam and so on, you would say about 90% of business were owned by Hakka Chinese families. So then they went to North America, and on the West Coast, they were the ones who set up business in San Francisco, in Western Canada, Victoria Island, Victoria. So they were mainstream business. But what the article also said was that they pooled together. So what my grandfather did in starting the Chinese evolution then in the family is what was practiced all over the world with the Chinese. So they brought in members of the family. They come and join a working shop, and then they are helped and set up a branch or store somewhere else. So your grandfather, for example, Albert, came to Jamaica and stayed with his uncle, which is my grandfather.
Okay.
And then he learned the trade, and then he went on his own after that.
So we're talking what ages? You know the ages, like when Papa, my grandfather, start that internship with your people?
I believe he must have been maybe in his 20s.
Okay.
He was very young. My father came when he was also very young. So they were young, and they branched off. So many of Chens in Jamaica could be our relatives. We don't know.
How much Chen?
Because they went.
We know Chen Young. We know Chen
Yes.
Sang.
Yes.
We have Chen,
Well,
what else?
All right, there have been a lot of Chinese that we don't know. Many of them were before. Some went back to China.
Is it?
Some went, yeah. So they were constantly on the move. In fact, I'll just backtracking a little bit. From our village, the Chens went to Jamaica and Suriname. Suriname was a mainstay for our community. And I found one of my cousins there who was born there. He's in Hong Kong, and he had several businesses in Indonesia and so forth. So
what was the beacon? What was the beacon on Jamaican island that somebody could say, I want to go there? Jamaica is a small place compared to Cuba, Haiti, Hispaniola. Right. What was the beacon? Was the beacon the English colony?
No, it's opportunity. Remember, they're coming from famine, Japanese invasion, because even in our village, which is in a town called it's Tui, T-U-Y-I, is our village.
In Southeast Asia, in Southeast China.
Right, at the border of Hong Kong. They had lookout towers around the community. And in fact, I hear many shots were fired from up the towers that we visited. Okay. So it was a hard life. And I saw it for myself. I went there in 1965 with my father. Heart of communism and hard times in China. Rice fields, board bed, the works. In fact, I was told that I should have gone there as one of the Chinese customs where they'd like to many Chinese families like to send a Chinese member to learn the culture and the language.
Back
I
to
hear that I
China.
was selected. Yeah,
Okay.
but I guess them hardship that my father's decided.
Can't leave you there.
No. So I went there as a boy. So I saw firsthand. I met a lot of the family there. Some of them are now very successful.
Mm.
And in fact, it was when I went there in 2008 that I found out that I was given a name, I had a Chinese name. I didn't know.
Okay.
It means it's Su Yen.
Su Yen.
Yes, Yen,
Uh-huh.
which means that when you go to the well to drink from it, you must remember where the water comes from. So you must remember your roots. Yes, so that was my name.
All right. So
So
Oliver, you can say it's purely by chance that
everything is by chance.
our elders ended up in Jamaica. It's just purely by chance.
Yes. I would say by chance, looking for opportunity. In fact, there's a new wave of Chinese also from the same village. In fact, I found out that I have two grandnephews in Jamaica. Didn't know. So it's an interesting history.
Yes.
But yes.
Very interesting, because in today's time, we have internet, we have facts, we have all those things. But I always try to imagine how somebody could by chance, reach Jamaica, and then communicate to those people way back in Southeast China to say, listen, this place is okay, you can come. How would that happen? Explain to the audience. You write a letter and it takes 6 months to go and come back. I mean,
well, the Chinese, when they came, I mean, they brought back family wherever they can, but they formed Chinese Benevolent Association and various organizations where they formed units, and they were able to communicate and meet regularly, like once per week. They will go to Barry Street or wherever, or some main street, some in the various townships and so on. So they were always meeting. Some were playing mahjong, but it was for goodwill,
So they would write letters, then they would put them in a bundle, and somehow that would reach somewhere in China.
Regular Royal Mail, man. Royal Mail, Jamaica. English, same thing. Because,
no, that is interesting, because
anyhow,
yeah.
As you know, you and I are mixed Chinese, eh? So we grew up as Jamaicans. After I came back from China with my father in 1965, 2 years later, he died. And then approximately 3 years later, my grandfather died. So my Chinese connection disappeared. So we grew up as Jamaican, right? We weren't the typical Chinese, but we were Chinese,
Yeah.
So I always wondered about my family because I didn't hear anything from them. Maybe they were communicating to somebody else, but they couldn't find me. In 2008, I decided, well, earlier than that, my sister, she worked at Aramco in Saudi Arabia. Yes.
That is Moy.
Yes, on one of her trips to China, to Hong Kong, there was an address that we had of our uncle. and she decided to go and look if he's there. And yes, there and behold, he was there.
What?
Met her in a suit and tie and thing at the house. It's a big occasion. And but the unfortunate thing is that my sister didn't follow up, which, China was like not part of us anymore because we disconnect. However, in 2008, I decided to go to a Canton fair in China. And I decided that I was going to check with the address to see if any of my uncles were alive. And there I met a gentleman at the apartment. And it's strange because when I walked up to him, I said, I am Chen from Jamaica. So he looked at me as if I'm some big stranger. Who are you, And then I stayed at this apartment in 1965. And then said to me, you're the one. He said, come in. And then he started to give me some histories, because he said, my half brother in China was alive and he lived at the village. And we had some influential family member, which he introduced me to the day after. So I was able to make link, and they had history, as
So
a little boy.
Their history is written. They have those things written down.
They keep everything.
Wow.
Because when I went to China and I came back in the middle of our hurricane, we had dinner, and he showed me pictures of my family that my father had sent to them. And he told me, one of the Lutman, he told me that his father was very concerned about us in Jamaica because they couldn't get us. And in fact, he gave me a copy of a letter addressed to me, Su Yen, in Chapeltown.
That never reached.
It reached up Chapeltown and go right back to China. So
it bounced.
He wrote that he was concerned about my father's children.
Okay.
I want a contact with us. So on that occasion, that was a big thing for me.
Yeah.
Because now you know that Chinese were not bad people. They were looking out for our interests, but they couldn't communicate.
Well, we want to appreciate the Royal Mail because that is something what I was trying to understand how the communication works. Yeah.
So I got the letter hand delivered to me.
Yeah. So I know you have the history, and I know your family is really one of the head families, but I want you to divert now. I want you to talk about my family now. I want to hear about my grandfather because he have a rich history and how his children, his wives, his children, how we come up as Jamaican people. Can you give the audience some of that history? Because if Papa reached Jamaica when he was 20-something, that means he met my grandmother at an early age. And you even have the picture there of my great-grandmother, who is what we'd say now the matriarch, who passed away. But the history that we have in Jamaica, that I have, she is the head. And then now her daughter is my grandmother. So if you can just walk us through now the Chen Young family.
Well, let me just start back from China. The Chen Young, which is really Chen, and my grandfather family lived beside each other. The houses were beside each other.
Like my father and Aunt Joyce.
Exactly. So the
Mhm.
pattern is similar. They keep
Mm.
right. I'll tell you later on that they had moved up. The government had provided them with houses, and the houses were beside each other.
Same way.
So when your dad and I went to China, we actually went to the two houses beside each other.
Mhm.
So the family was tight and is tight still.
Yeah.
So your grandfather was my grandfather's nephew. He came here when he was young. No, what I found was that these Uncle Chinamen came without wing. Okay, it's not like you migrate with a family, a wife and a thing. So they were single, and they found ladies in the communities and had relationship and had children. Right. So as so he started off, I guess, with your father and Andre's mother, and then later on he married Joyce, and from there they made life in the sense of there were several children, and they moved from shop to shop, as you realize. My grandfather.
You mean Miss Iris?
You're right, Miss Harris, yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So they moved from shop to shop, establishing the thing. It was the thing to do for the Chinese at that time.
Mm-hmm.
No, second generation after that, many of them went into other industries and got a lot of educated ones and stuff. So things changed after a while, but it started off with the community shop as a part of their culture.
Okay. Now, I had sent you the family frame.
Yes.
You can touch on that frame. I will put it on the screen later when I'm editing.
Yeah.
But if you can just touch on the frame.
Not that I can speak of many things. I read it. You must remember that your father and your uncles were years before me, and they interacted in a different way with a different set of Chinese. But throughout life, two families have kept close, both in China and in Jamaica and USA. So they struggled, but one hallmark of the Chinese was that they tried to educate their children.
Yes.
So they could get a better opportunity than what they had or they inherited. So your grandfather fell into that. My father, grandfather, same thing. And therefore we built, and then many instances we migrated to build on our I say status in life, because it was a struggle.
Good. Well, as I say, I will put the frame on the in the video, but suffice to say, my grandfather Albert Chen Young.
Right.
The understanding I have is that he got the name Albert in Jamaica when he was being registered.
Well,
he took that name.
Even today, the Chinese have an English name, those that are in Jamaica. My father was Vincent, but I guess my grandfather he just kept his Chinese, well, not even Chinese name. He called it himself Chen Sang, but he was Chen Lup Chun or something like that.
Okay. So it was a requirement from the Jamaican government, or just an assimilation, trying to assimilate?
My understanding of a lot of the things were the Chinese were at tug of war with the colonial government in Jamaica, English.
Mhm.
And therefore they changed their names to operate business and do all sorts of things. So I don't know what the story is fully with
Mm.
all of them.
So
Um,
we can assume
yes,
assimilation.
mhm.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yes, and it's easier for the Jamaican populace to relate to you in a English
Yes.
name, you know.
Well, same, so
Yes,
well, after emancipation, the slaves
right,
took the names of the slave masters.
right,
So you don't have one
right.
African name in Jamaica right now. African names in Jamaica right now is people giving their children a first
Yes,
name, but
first name
all surnames
were
is
owned by the slave owners.
slave owners and colonialists. Yeah.
Yes,
All
yes.
right. Well, again, for the audience, I have three grandmothers as per African
Mhm,
tradition. I have three grandmothers because my
mhm.
grandfather has how many? 7 kids.
About,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Mhm,
my father, Lascelles Chen Young, is the oldest.
mhm. Right.
And we will show the picture of Miss Ruth, who is the
Mhm,
oldest, I would say, African in the Chen Young family. And then now I have the picture of her daughter, Mama Tati, who now is
mhm,
my father's mother. We
mhm,
also have the picture of Miss Iris, who is
mhm.
again the mother of our uncles and aunts. But there is one lady who is missing. We don't have a picture of her.
Paul
Um,
and
so
yes.
we have a big family. And
Mhm.
Oliver, I'm going to ask you now to touch on one special person who you know in my life, the one who really gave me an opportunity to become somebody, who is our dearly beloved Uncle Paul. Can
Yes.
you give us some of his background? Because you and I grew under him, and we want to give
Mhm.
due respect to our uncle. So
Yes.
can you give us a little history now of Uncle Paul?
Yes. Well, Paul, I know in his early years he went to Clarendon College, which is right beside Summerfield, which is
Which is the same
beside
school you went to also.
yes, yes.
Big up Clarendon
Right.
College.
Yes, right beside chapter there.
Yes.
He did well at school.
He was a
And
brain, eh?
yes, it seems so. I heard that lightning struck him one day.
What?
Yeah, that's that is our old student told me about it. So
Mm.
that may have ignited his brain. But he went to North America at Howard University. And being, I would say, the hacker that he was determined to achieve. And with his brilliance, he achieved up to his PhD at Pittsburgh University.
Yeah.
He worked with World Bank on special projects. He came back to Jamaica, started job with the Development Bank of Jamaica, which was then Jamaica Development Bank, and later on did consulting. Then later went into banking and established the Workers' Bank. After that stint, he started his own venture, which is where you and I came in. In the early stages, we were in the stockbroking. I was in stockbroking, financial consulting, and the merchant bank. And that's where we learned business. In those days, Jamaica was short of people with international intellect. I would put it that way. He went around the world and got a lot of things, and plus with World Bank. So many things that he introduced in Jamaica were actually things that he observed overseas and was bold enough to take on the establishment and establish his own. So he's a true entrepreneur, and he started many things. He wasn't afraid.
Yeah.
So your father now, I think, is the brains. Your father start life simple, working, driving truck, and working bauxite and so on. Then he went to the United States to study engineering. And before you know it, he ended up with a PhD in engineering. And he was in demand by many of America's top companies because of his brilliance at university in his engineering field. In fact, he worked on the construction of the Esso refinery in Jamaica, which is a major thing. So his achievement is, for years he worked as consultant for Esso in areas of petroleum work and so on. So I would think his brilliance, and probably you could say his brilliance is passed on to you. But yes, he did set an example and challenge.
Yeah. Well, respect is due, because I can't dim the light, especially on my uncle, Dr. Paul Chen Young. For the viewers, Oliver graduated before me from UWI. Oliver went in with A levels. Me, I went in with O levels. Because at the time, Jamaica had that option where if you had good O levels, you could go in. So
you started at N1.
Yeah. We start at a low level. So
yes,
our course was N4, where your course was you get to N3 and you finish. So
no, I started at N2 and did N4.
Yeah, me, I start at N1. So Oliver graduated before me, and then now at the end, I faltered a bit, so I had to do one more year. So Oliver was in the working world before me. So 1980, I went into teaching, and then at Camperdown High School, and then 1981. Actually, not even 1981, 1980 for the audience.
Yes.
Teaching, you have long holidays, so we approach Uncle Paul and he said, yeah, man, we have a computer in the corner of the room. If you can learn to use the computer, then you can get a job. God smiled on me because
I'm gonna give you.
Yeah, come in, Oliver.
I'm gonna give you. Yes, like a secret.
Yeah.
When I joined Paul, I started off as holiday worker in the consulting company. So I was there crunching figures,
So you come as a holiday worker?
Yes, man.
Okay.
And then he found that I was good at crunching the figures. And once he left and me to do a project and gave me a feasibility study manual, which was used by the World Bank, on a project, and said, try your best. I say, I got it. I think he went to Papua New Guinea or one of those places.
Yeah.
Then I sat down there and I worked on the spreadsheet and I followed the manual. And when I came back, he said, what?
Yeah.
You didn't do accounts or economics and you're doing this? So he said, look, your technical background, in those days I did chemistry, analytical, was major asset because it's in many of my economic people here. Can't do what you did.
Well,
And then because you did physics and account.
Physics and accounts.
That was a good. See, he asked me what I thought. I said, yeah, man. Call Butch.
Yeah.
That's how it came, you know.
Well, I want the audience to know all of my life, all of my working experience, I would say the great majority, because I was a teacher, yes. I have taught for 5 years high school and about half a year at tertiary level. But in the working world, it is Dr. Paul Chen Young. Opportunities that set me for life. First, I learned to use a computer. And for the young people, those days we were looking at 64K Radio Shack, where the original floppy disk, the name floppy means it was really floppy. You slide it in.
I remember the days.
I learned, and the same manual that you're talking about, Oliver, it was called the pre-feasibility study. You need a manual. I was given that manual by George.
Yes, George Campbell.
George Campbell, our good friend. And George said to me, Butch, if you can put this thing on the VisiCalc, and again, VisiCalc is the precursor of Excel.
Yes.
I struggled, and when I finished that project, I remember Uncle Paul looked at me and he said, you have to come here full time. And that was, if you remember, that was the Caribbean Basin Initiative project of the World Bank.
Yeah, it was right after Reagan got into power.
Aha. So this is why I want to give respect to my uncle, because up till today, those are the skills that I am using in banking and finance to do feasibility studies and you know, show various scenarios. So
and to be an entrepreneur.
Yes, you plan the thing properly, you know. Now looking at our generation, because as you rightly say, our families emphasized education a lot. So we can look at our cousins and see where they are, you know. And we have to appreciate what our parents did for us, how they instill in us that principle of education, you know. So Oliver, tell us a little bit about what you're doing there in Jamaica. I know you're a businessman also, moving forward. How are your things? What is happening there?
Well, I'm more semi-retired. I'm working on some projects. One of them, I'm working with a group to develop a special economic zone. Quite a big project, quite big, with 250 acres at the wharf, beside the wharf, sorry.
There is 250 acres still available in Kingston at the wharf?
Yes, but at the wharf is what was identified as a lot of swamplands and stuff. But yes, there's a lot of places, a lot of areas there. And we have strong interests, and we're working with Chinese government.
Okay.
So I can't speak much about it yet, but we're pretty advanced, and the response has been good. We have been somewhat slow over the year because of the COVID and the problems, etc. But we are looking to pick up very soon.
Okay.
So I'm working on that and one or other projects, you know.
Yeah.
But you could call me retired, but I'm working on projects.
You know, that word is a scary word because
No.
I do. My dad, as you know, is nearly 90 years old and he gets up and he goes to work. So,
yeah, man.
Until
you can't sit by yourself, you know. I get this, man.
Yeah. Well, I have to take lead from my dad. As long as he's working, I have to be working. Maybe one day when he says he's going to stop, then I can consider, but no,
Yes,
we have to
makes
be
sense.
working. Yeah. So
Right.
basically, we originated in northern China.
Right.
Somehow we got to Southeast China because of migration of those people.
Mhm.
Then they move because of struggles and problems in Southeast China. They move to Western USA.
Mhm.
Then they come down the coast of Western USA and get involved in Panama.
Mhm.
Somehow they cross Panama and get into the Caribbean Sea and find
Yes,
Jamaica and Suriname.
yeah, Suriname.
And Chen Young family took roots there.
Yes, right.
Plus the Chen Sangs and the whoever else. So over the years, people have traveled, and right now there are only a few. Actually, there is no. I heard that one of my uncles, Uncle Ken,
Mhm.
is back in China, back in Jamaica. I don't know. I just heard. But
Okay.
if he is there, then he is the only Chen Young that is on the island.
That is it.
Because my little sister, Lisha, even though she's Chen Young, she's now married. So the Chen Young name will not pass in her family.
Yes.
And I have a son, Daniel, but he's Chen. So I want you to explain now to the audience how Chen become Chen Young, become Chen Young, because there is a
All right.
tradition. What is it?
First of all, Chen was the Cantonese name,
The surname.
surname Chen.
Look like we have a disconnection on the
Chinese name is on the Mandarin, it's Zheng, Z-E-N-G. Okay. Because I have several of my relatives who are Zheng. And also, those who went to Suriname got a Dutch translation, which I can't even pronounce. So you see their name, I don't know, but they inherited the Dutch pronunciation. So Chen is base, but it's called different names in different places.
Okay. So, because even, it's something that confused me growing up, because I remember when I was in Harborview Primary School, they used to give us the envelopes to write the name and address of the parent to put the report card.
Yes.
So I remember writing Mr. Lascelles Chen, 75 Coral Way, Harborview.
Yes.
When the letter came, my father looked at me and said, "You don't know what my name is?" So I looked to my mother and I said, "What is the problem?" She said, "No, your father is Lascelles Chen Young." So I say, "Okay." I leave it at that because my birth certificate, it says Lascelles Chen. So at some point, people adapt the name Chen Young and took that as a surname.
And you'll find that many families do the same, renaming themselves and their children. You have Chen Young, Chen Si, you have
Chen Sang.
all manner of different double barrel names, and so while it is supposed to be stopped at one, it's passed on to everybody.
Yeah.
My grandfather was Chen Sang, even though his name in China was Chen Lupchong. So I don't know that happened,
Any
But
of the boys, any of your brothers carry Chen Sang?
My sister carried Chen Sang.
Moi?
She was registered,
Okay.
Von Chen Sang. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
For the audience, because we don't want to be unbalanced. My grandfather, of course, came from China, and my grandmother, I've seen a picture of her. She is a descendant of Miss Ruth, which is an African woman, descendant of an African slave. On my mother's side now, my grandmother looked just like Miss Ruth. So I know she is a descendant of African slaves. But I don't know my grandfather. And his name is Richards. And Richards comes from England. So, and when you look at the complexion of my mother,
Yes.
you know, she could pass for some half-white person because her complexion is very, very clear. So my assumption has always been that my grandfather on her side is a white man. Now, my mother grew with the Ashtons in Maypen. And I have asked our cousin Pablo to talk to some of his older sisters because his mother passed away and his father passed away. And even Junior, the elder brother, passed away. So just trying to get some history on that side also. But this program is focusing on the Chinese lineage, our proud lineage. And to give due respect to your grandfather, your father, my grandfather, and those who have held that Chinese tradition. Now, I must admit to the viewers, I do not know one word in Chinese. But I know Oliver knows a few of those words.
Not really.
You know? And how to write those things, 1 line, 2 line, whatever, you know.
But I must send you a picture of the Chen symbol in Chinese. Yes,
okay.
I'll send it that. Yes.
It's a complicated thing or?
No, it's one of the simpler ones, but it's a distinct mark.
Yes, send it.
It's on my father's headstone, and it's also in the archives of the Chinese Benevolent Association.
Send it.
So you must know I'll send it to you.
Yeah, and I will put it as an insert in the video. Yes.
Yes, because that's the Chen mark.
Yeah. No, this program is about giving respect and showing that as Jamaicans, we still carry our proud Chinese heritage.
Yes.
And before coming down, I want to mention and give respect to those who are still alive. You know, first of all, my dad, Mr. Lascelles Anthony Chen Young, who is living in Miami. Big up, Daddy. Aunt Lynn, Aunt Monica, and those are the 3 elders that we have. We want to pay respect. And of course, Uncle Ken. We want to pay respect to Uncle Sina, who passed away, Uncle Paul, who passed away, and the in-laws also, Aunt Lola, Aunt Michelle, because these people, as kids, these people treated us nicely, very nice.
Very nice.
Yes, so we want to give respect. And Aunt Penny, who was Uncle Ken's wife, she's still alive, yes. So giving respect, because we know as youth, we have to do those things. Who on your side is still alive, Oliver? Because I remember Jimmy, I remember Moy. Who on your side is still around?
I have older sister, Gloria. She's alive. Yvonne, my sister Moy. Robert, and myself.
Good. I want to appreciate Tracy, who helped us get some of the information for this interview. Tracy Duane, and those others in the US who chip in and shared some intimate family notes that we passed on to Oliver. And I don't know, maybe one day Oliver will collate them and put it together in a format. Because we learned a lesson. If our elders held records that can trace us back so many generations to northern China, maybe us as this generation could put together a few pages and share. Our Aunt Joyce, God bless her soul, she's the one who shared that picture album with me. And I pass it on to my kids so they can know these are people of our family, you know? Yeah. So Oliver, I want to thank you again for your time. I want to wish God's blessing on you and your family, Mama and the children. Hoping we can come to Jamaica soon, but the COVID thing is really causing a problem. Even the statistics out of Jamaica look funny. I see the new lockdown, new curfew.
Lockdown weekend.
Yeah. You get your vaccination yet?
No.
Okay.
But
you plan to join the line?
If they're dealing with 75 and over now. So 60 and over.
Will be soon, eh?
Yeah, so I hope by May or so.
Okay. Well, I understand that our elders in the US have theirs, Aunt Monica, Aunt Lynn, and Daddy have received theirs. So we're grateful for that. And we pray to the Almighty God that He continue to watch over us as a family and bless our children. That at least later on, somebody can watch the video, somebody can read something and have that history, you know where we come from. Yeah. So Oliver, thank you very much for your time.
Yes, sir.
And for the audience, Oliver is there now at, I don't know, 1 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. On my side in Tanzania, it's like 8:15 in the morning. And, I'm very appreciative to Oliver that he could stay up and we could do this interview. God bless my cousin. Take care here, sir.
Take care, Butch. All right.
Bye.